The Leafs leave, no doubt, up in Buffalo.
Flower gets showered with lots of love after a wild finish in Minnesota.
Plus, it's that time of year when the ice starts to heat up down in Florida.
All that and so much more on this Tuesday night edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
The horn has sounded. Hello there, hockey fans, and welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. I'm Cam Stewart, a sad Boston Bruins fan on the third coast.
And I'm Tyler Feldman, a lifelong Penguins fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh, but currently loving life in Austin, Texas. And Cam, 10 games, 3 playoff spots, still up for grabs. Just another quiet night in the National Hockey League.
As always, 10 games to get to, Tyler, so let's get right to it. Let's drop the puck on the night's best finish, the wildest finish, if you will, up there in the Twin Cities. The Wild, all they need is a point out of this game. They're facing the lowly Anaheim Ducks. A point gets them into the playoffs, but it was not that easy. It needed a Joel Eriksson-Ek heroic goal late on in the game, and then an unbelievable tribute in overtime, and just the perfect way for the Wild to clinch that wild card spot out in the Western Conference. Seth Topol, he is a happy man tonight with Locked On Wild.
The Minnesota Wild clinched the top wild card spot in the Western Conference in the most Minnesota Wild way possible. Hey everybody, Seth Topol, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, recapping a 3-2 overtime win over the Anaheim Ducks. The Minnesota Wild needed 1 point in this game to clinch the top wild card spot, but it looked dicey heading into the third period as the Wild found themselves trailing 2-1 to the Ducks before Joel Eriksson-Ek scored the game-tying goal with a minute left to play. In the extra session, Marc-Andre Fleury gets in the net to get one final cheer from the home fans before the playoffs get started. He goes 5 for 5 and saves, and Matt Boldy sends the home fans home happy as he scores the overtime winner. It wasn't easy. A lot of things weren't during this regular season, and now the Wild set their sights on the Vegas Golden Knights for round 1. For more on the Minnesota Wild, make sure you follow Locked On Wild wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Really cool moment. He was selling it short. Final minute goal. It was actually 20 seconds left in regulation. Goalie pulled at the Minnesota end, and Joel Eriksson-Ek. All they needed was him to get healthy, apparently. He's just going to carry them here, and the roof just gets blown off the place as he ties it with 20 seconds left. They know they're going to get that point. And then one of your favorites, Tyler, Marc-Andre Fleury, gets that really cool send-off in overtime for what could be his last game in the NHL. How cool was that, man?
And likely will be, at least in the regular season. Marc-Andre Fleury, I mean, he's had so many wonderful moments during this final stretch of the season, and it was just special to see him come ice cold off the bench and make some pretty big, spectacular saves in overtime. He had 5 saves. He helped Minnesota get the 2 points, but that Eriksson-Ek goal with 20 seconds left, my favorite part was they didn't even need to win the game. They just needed 1 point. So by Eriksson-Ek scoring with just 20 seconds left, that solidified a spot in the playoffs for the Wild, one of the most consistent teams over the last 13 years. I think it's 11 playoff trips in the last 13 seasons for Minnesota, which is really impressive. And hey, you mentioned Eriksson-Ek getting healthy. First time since November 11th, Cam, that the Minnesota Wild had a clean injury list going into this hockey game, and I think that bodes well for the Wild as they get set for the playoffs.
Some teams getting hot at the right time, maybe more importantly, the Wild getting healthy at the right time. They clinched the wild card spot. Toronto, out east, was looking to clinch the division for just the third time since the NHL expanded to 12 teams. That was all the way back in 1967 for those keeping score at home.
And that really is hard for me to believe. Just
Incredible.
3 division titles for that organization.
Montreal and Boston took up a lot of that division for a long time in the Adams division and now in the Atlantic. But this is Toronto's year. And this was a tight game throughout. It was 1-0 for most of the game. It ends with 4. They score on the empty net. Toronto is looking for 3 things in this game, Tyler. Okay, they're looking for the division title. They're looking for Mitch Marner's first 100-point season and Austin Matthews to get to 400 career goals. Check, check, and check. You couldn't ask for a much better night in Leafs land.
Especially given who they'll be facing in the first round, a battle of Ontario. And Ottawa has had Toronto's number over the past couple seasons. 6-0-1, the Senators head-to-head against the Maple Leafs the last 2 years. Toronto, really nice game, though. Mitch Marner, 100 points for the first time in his career. 400 career NHL goals for Austin Matthews. He's the 6th fastest to get to that mark in NHL history. And then you have Stolarz in net, his 3rd straight shutout, which is just impressive work for Stolarz. He was really impressive, made some really great saves. He had 2 diving stops with about 2.5 minutes left. That was a critical point in the game for Toronto. Then they got those 2 late. But again, just really impressive. Mitch Marner, 7th time, just the 7th time in franchise history a player has reached the 100-point mark for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, and only the 4th different player to do it. They've been around a long time. I know 100-point seasons are only the last, 50 years or so, but it is crazy, the season that Mitch Marner's had, and he's been so close to it. He's had, I think, 95, 97, 99, and finally gets over the hump, gets his 100th. The Leafs get over the hump, actually win the division, but as you said, it's still going to be a pressure-packed first round for them.
And Cam, real quickly, the Leafs are red hot. So all those Toronto
Yeah.
fans looking for the right energy going into the playoffs, 9-1-1 in the Leafs' last 11. So they've been playing some really good hockey. Bodes well, I think, for Toronto come the playoffs. You'd like to think so, at least. You'd like to think so.
Yeah, they might finally have that momentum going into the postseason that they've felt they haven't really had in years past. And one of the teams trying to get into that postseason, just get into the dance, is the Columbus Blue Jackets, right? The story of the year in the NHL. It looked like they were going to nab that spot for a lot of the season. The last few weeks, not so much. Montreal basically had it wrapped up. They've blown it the last 2 games. The Blue Jackets have a chance to put the pressure on. They need to win twice in regulation, and they need Montreal to lose to Carolina in the final game. Well, they've done their job so far. They go to Philly. They play a team that's not playing for anything, and they absolutely stonewall them. They shut them out 3-0. A couple of Zach Werenski assists, but Tyler, the kid in net for Columbus, is genuinely keeping their playoff hopes very much alive.
Yeah, fire the cannon for Jack Reeves. This guy has been unbelievable since being recalled back on April 10th. Since then, the Blue Jackets, 4-0-0, .976 save percentage, .75 goals against average. He's got 2 shutouts in his last 3 games. He had 29 saves tonight in the 3-0 shutout win over the Flyers. Just really impressive work for a young kid. And hey, the Blue Jackets, they entered tonight's game with the less than 7% chance of making the playoffs. That number has certainly been bumped up now. All they've got to do, they've got to beat the Islanders Thursday. They've got to hope that the Canadiens lose to the Canes and they're in the playoffs, which would be remarkable given where they were at. 4 straight wins for the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're outscoring their opponents 19-5 during that stretch. Incredible by Columbus.
This sets up for the game of the year in the NHL tomorrow, and the penultimate day of the regular season, that Montreal-Carolina one. Of course, that will be our game of the night on NHL Game Night tomorrow. But we've got plenty of NHL Game Night left right now, okay? Playoff spots still up for grabs out in the West, and Florida hockey, it gets pretty good this time of year, and you better get used to it. Better get used to it getting into the playoffs. We'll have the Lightning and the Panthers recap and a whole lot more coming up next on Locked On NHL Game Night.
Tonight's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, though. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
It's getting red hot down in Florida, except even some of the snowbirds are getting back. But those who love their hockey are staying in the Sunshine State right now. This is what we call the dress rehearsal for what that first round matchup is going to be in just a few days. Although they didn't know that coming in. Tampa could have still caught Toronto for the division title. The Panthers locked in at 3. They go up the road to Tampa. They rest a ton of guys, and this becomes an onslaught by the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning win it 5-1. Obviously, they've been playing the better hockey of the two. Florida just looking to get healthy. And this is the matchup that we will see once again, one that we're getting pretty familiar with. But Armando Velez, Locked On Panthers. Any worry going into this one?
Lose the battle, but get ready for a war. What is up, guys? Armando Velez here for the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast as the Panthers lose to the Tampa Bay Lightning by a final score of 5-1 in Game 82. The Panthers rest a whole bunch of guys. The Tampa Bay Lightning had a lot to play for, was still fighting for a division championship for them. And this was over after the first period, where the Lightning got a goal in the first 2 minutes thanks to Braden Point and a goal at the end of the second period. The Panthers did have a power play that carried over into the second period, and there was nothing to show for them. Also gave up a shorthanded goal for them as well. But with the Toronto Maple Leafs defeating the Buffalo Sabres by a final score of 4-0, the Leafs clinched the division, and now it's a battle of Florida between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning, the 4th time in the last 5 years. And both these teams in the last 5 seasons have represented the Eastern Conference in the Stanley Cup final. So, man, grab your popcorn because it's going to be a battle. We're going to break all that down on tomorrow's Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
No love lost between these two teams. Is probably a bad thing that the Panthers are locked into 3, because how about 1-8 in their last 9 games on the road? Tyler, these are two teams that have been flip-flopping position all year long, but it feels like one is going in the right direction going into the postseason.
Yeah, Tampa Bay definitely has the momentum, Cam. Florida, not great on the road against Tampa Bay either, so that's a concern. You look at the last 4 times these teams have met in the postseason. Like our reporter said, 4 times since 2021.
It's pretty good.
When you think hockey, you don't think Florida. That's why I think it's been so much fun these last 5 seasons, seeing both the Panthers and the Lightning just duke it out. And I think this should set the stage. What we saw tonight, you saw all the top scorers for Tampa Bay. Point, Gensel, Kucherov, all those guys have 40-plus or close to 40 goals this season. Those top guys for the Lightning, dangerous. And I think if the Florida Panthers can't get fully healthy, they rest a ton of guys here tonight in that 5-1 loss. But Tampa Bay had all the momentum start to finish. Vasilevsky, 23 saves in the win. I'm just excited for this first-round matchup. No love lost. We'll see what happens. But this is one of those matchups in the first round that should have hockey fans super excited.
And also, a little note here, ho-hum, Nikita Kucherov, just another 120-point season. Second straight season, 3rd time in his career that he's done that. I don't want to say quietly because he's a finalist, or he's going to be a finalist for the Hart Trophy, right? But it's just one of those guys. He's still not in that McDavid Matthews discussion, but the points say
should
otherwise.
Be.
Yeah,
he should be. Just the 14th player in NHL history with 3 or more seasons of at least 120 points. So
it's an elite club, man.
The guy knows how to puck. The guy can puck pretty well.
And those are two teams that are pretty used to being in the postseason. The St. Louis Blues trying to get back used to being in the postseason since that 2019 Stanley Cup victory. And they had a chance. They've obviously had a tremendous turnaround in this season. All they got to do is beat Utah in this game at home. And they showed right away that they were ready for this challenge. 4-0 at the end of the first on just 12 shots, and they go on to win 6-1. The Blues punch their ticket, and it makes for one happy Haley Taylor Simon of Locked On Blues with her report of her team going to the playoffs.
They did it. The St. Louis Blues defeated Utah, and now they're going to the playoffs to take on the Winnipeg Jets. I am so proud of this team. Losing 3 games in a row sucked, but you know what? They got the job done tonight. Also, shout out to Brandon Saad on the VGK for scoring a goal. But anyways, playoff hockey returns to the Lou. I am so proud of the boys. I am so pumped. You have no idea. I love this team. Shout out to Braden Shen, Snuggie getting his first goal. How about Jordan Kyrou with multi-goals? Okay, Bushi. The list goes on and on. Zach Golduke. This is awesome. Wow, we did it. We finally got playoff hockey. Wildcard 2, just like I predicted in the beginning of the season. Yeah, that is right. I can go on and on. I cannot wait for tomorrow's episode. But like always, let's go Blues.
And what a turnaround this has been, Tyler. And if you didn't think, if you thought they were just going to squeak into the postseason because they were going to be the second wild card, you would be wrong. I mean, they flexed some serious muscle in this game tonight.
Historic flexing of muscles down the stretch. February 2nd, the Blues were 7 points out of that last wild card spot. Since then, 21-5-4, 46 points, leading all NHL teams during that stretch. They're just the 10th team in NHL history to qualify for the playoffs after being 8 or more points out with 26 or less games to go. I mean, just sensational. They had that 12-game winning streak during that stretch, and they've just had great play top to bottom through all 3 zones. Now they get the Jets in the first round, and we'll see if we can see a little reminiscence of that 2019 Stanley Cup championship team.
I can hear the echoes of glory right now. And if that isn't enough to put a Bruins fan into shock, the fact that we could have a conference final of Bruce Cassidy versus Jim Montgomery will certainly do that. Anyway, speaking of Bruce Cassidy, his team was up in Calgary, and he was saying before the game, we didn't think we had much to play for in this one. Calgary had all of it to play for because they were scoreboard watching. They needed one of St. Louis or Minnesota to drop a game, not just drop a point. They needed one of them to lose a game because both those teams were in their finales. The Flames with a game left after tonight, and it didn't start auspiciously for Calgary either. They fall down 3-1, and by the second intermission, they're eliminated from postseason play. And then Tyler, a hockey game breaks out. I don't know what it was, but they get eliminated from postseason contention. And then all of a sudden they turn this thing around.
That was my favorite part of this hockey game because Calgary down 3-1 after 2 periods of play. They probably didn't know yet that they had been eliminated, but once they got to the locker room, I'm sure it was the first thing that was discussed. And I don't know what was said or what the conversation was like in that Flames locker room at that moment, but they came out blazing hot in the third period. 3 quick goals, took the lead, lost the lead at the end, and then were able to get it done in the shootout. Just a special way for that season to finish. The fans got treated to just a really nice end of the season if you're Calgary, despite not making the playoffs. At least you gave those fans something to go out with their head held high. Pretty impressive for a team to come together like that, given the circumstances, to come that close to a playoff clinching situation and not make it. But certainly some exciting hockey to watch on a Tuesday night.
And this does, like, I'm going to agree with you 100% here. And it sounds like kind of a loser mentality, but the building was so into it in that third period when they made the comeback. And, everyone's got the smartphones. They know that they're done. But they're there and they're like, you know what? We're Flames fans. Like, we want them to win this game. Like, we're not ditching now. And it's a great comeback. They win in the shootout. They're still doing the Duran, and they're showing the faces of the fans after the shootout victory, and the place was alive. And it's, I don't know, it's for guys like you and I, whose teams are not in the playoffs, we can appreciate that because it hasn't felt that fun for us. So
that's hockey, baby. I mean, look, third straight year the Calgary Flames have missed the playoffs. I think the playoffs are more fun with the Flames in the postseason, but hey, there's always next year.
And as long as they have Dustin Wolf, man, that could be exactly what they need. We have some teams that didn't make the playoffs battling for some draft position, but we also had a hat trick in this night that we haven't gone over yet, and an 11-goal thriller out on the West Coast. That is coming up next on Locked On NHL Game Night. But first, a word from our friends over at FanDuel. The NHL playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com, claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Once again, that's $250 in bonus bets on your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Still plenty of action to go over in this basically full slate of NHL game night here on Locked On NHL. We start with the Devils out in Boston. It's been a weird one for the Devils, right? Like they know they've been in the playoffs for a while, but they've had their big guns go down. The Bruins, all they needed to do was lose this game in regulation to lock the 4 spot in the draft lottery and drop to no lower than 6th.
Tell us how you really feel, Cam. Tell us how you really feel.
They did not lose in regulation. They lost anyway. They lost 5-4. The Devils win it in overtime. But the Bruins really just wanted me to suffer a little bit more. It's one of those frustrating situations where it's like, man, you lose all year. Can you just lose this one for me, please? And this is the second time in 4 months I've had to deal with this with the Patriots and now the Bruins. But this is not a Cam Stewart therapy session here.
We can make it one.
There's not enough time for that.
Unload your feelings. Hey, Bruins not in the
day.
playoffs for the first time since 2016. That sounds pretty good to me.
All right.
Brian Dumoulin, former Pittsburgh Penguin with the OT winner, short side, top shelf. Pretty sweet. He was acquired at the trade deadline by the Devils. 69 points for Nico Hischier. 2 more than he had last year, so he continues to climb, and it'll be the Devils and the Hurricanes in that first round. So I'm interested to see this Devils team's interesting because they've been battling injuries for quite a while now, despite their success this season. So they're a question mark for me come playoff time.
Give them any hope? Any hope to Jersey?
I'd give them a little hope. There's always hope, Cam, unless you're a Bruins fan.
Well, anyway, the way Carolina's played against some bad teams the last few weeks, maybe that does give them hope. You know, it's regular season versus the playoffs, but who knows? Speaking of bad teams, the Senators are not one. They have clinched the first wild card in the Eastern Conference. The Blackhawks are a bad team, but what they have done is only the Stanley Cup champions can hope to do. Maybe what the Chicago Blackhawks just did, and that is end their season on a 2-game winning streak. Jack Bushman is all into this one as they get the 4-3 overtime victory over Ottawa. Jack, how fun was that?
Frank Nazar scores the overtime winner, while Connor Bedard has a 3-point game as the Chicago Blackhawks best the Ottawa Senators 4-3 in overtime in their season finale. What's going on, everyone? This is Jack Bushman from Locked On Blackhawks. Back-to-back wins for the Hawks to put a stamp on the regular season, although this was one they probably didn't deserve as Ottawa controlled play basically all night long, outshooting the Hawks 37-16 in the process. However, Spencer Knight was phenomenal in his final start of the season, making 33 saves. And as I mentioned, Connor Bedard was the other big star of the game as well, scoring 2 goals and an assist, giving him 23 tallies to finish his sophomore year. I'll talk more about this win for the Hawks and some big takeaways from the regular season on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blackhawks.
So the Blackhawks get the win, but of course the story has been the Senators all year and getting back to the postseason. It's the 5th straight time the Blackhawks will miss the playoffs. Hard to imagine for someone who grew up in the dynasty era of Chicago Blackhawks hockey like me.
I'm familiar.
But that's where we're at right now. And I don't even know, could you call this a win over the Senators, Tyler? This was really like...
Sure. I don't know how the Blackhawks won. Senators outshot Chicago 37-16. It was a pretty dominant performance by Ottawa. Ottawa still lost. I'm not sure what to make of this. We'll just chalk it up to an end-of-season blunder. They're probably looking ahead to the Leafs at this point. 6-1 against Toronto. Ottawa is over the last 2 seasons. So that first round matchup, Cam, Battle of Ontario. I'm ready.
I'll tell you who else is ready. Ross Levitan of Locked On Sens. He sees them lose, or in absentia, they clinched the playoff spot last week. So it's a loss that goes down as a win. This also goes down as a loss, but Ross Levitan could not be more excited for this.
It's happening. It's actually happening. We're going to get the Battle of Ontario for the first time since I was in grade 6. I've graduated high school, college, got a job, got married, had a kid, and in that time, the Ottawa Senators have never played the Toronto Maple Leafs in a best-of-7 playoff series. It just so happens to be a year where the Senators completed the season sweep over the Leafs 3-0 if you're keeping track. We cannot wait for this series. It's not going to be a pushover, but the Ottawa Senators are not only back in the playoffs, but we're taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's go. Bring it on. We got you covered here at Locked On Senators.
For those who don't want to do the math for Ross Levitan and when he was in grade 6, that was 2003, 2004. So wake up, Tomas Kaberle. Wake up, Daniel Alfredson. The Red Sox had not won the World Series in 86 years the last time they played. That one's going to be a ton of fun. Real quick, Tyler, I think that might be the most exciting, just from a fan standpoint, matchup of the first round.
Bad for U.S. TV ratings.
Sure.
Fantastic for National Hockey League playoff hockey. Sign me up. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Cannot wait for that one. Cannot wait. Capitals are going to the playoffs. They will not be facing Ottawa, the one wild card. They'll be facing the 2 wild card. We don't know who that is yet. And they just needed to kind of 10-2, get the car in the garage in this one against the New York Islanders, who are halfway to Cancun. A nice night for Dylan Strome, who has had an awesome bounce back season. And what a way for him to cap off the regular season here.
Little hat trick for Strome.
It's not
Third
bad,
of his career, 33 saves for Charlie Lindgren. Capitals, they're right here, ending the season. Playoff hockey time, I expect them to be up here. Capitals are going to be one of those teams that I think are serious contenders, without a doubt, to win the Stanley Cup.
My homie Dan Homey of Locked On Capitals is also ready for this postseason to get started, but he's taking the positives from this win in particular.
The Capitals get back into the win column as they down to the Islanders by a score of 3-1. Hi, this is Dan Homey of Locked On Capitals. Well, this win tonight felt extra sweet as the Capitals struggled this past weekend against the Blue Jackets. And the game tonight, well, it was all about Mr. Dylan Strome. As he scores his first hat trick as a Capital, scoring goal number 27, 28, 29, putting up career numbers. Definitely one of the key pieces for the Capitals this season. And the win tonight felt extra sweet to me just because, the Capitals defied expectations, winning the Eastern Conference, winning the Metro, all of these kind of things. But it felt a bit shallow as of late as this team has struggled. So a bit of restored confidence with the win tonight. Ultimately, we don't know who the Capitals are going to play in the first round of the playoffs, but a big win for the Capitals tonight. Charlie Lindgren, huge for the team as well, saving 33 of 34. Let's go, Caps.
And this might have been a nice reset for Washington, kind of going off the Ovechkin goal records hangover. That maybe it's like, hey boys, we've got a heck of a team here. We've got more to play for here. So maybe that's what you got in that game at Long Island tonight. We had a crazy one out west too to kind of cap off our night, Tyler. We were waiting for that one to end for us to get on the air, and this was the game that would not die. The Kings were up 6-2 in the third period, and we're going over notes. We're trying to get this show going, and we look up. It's 6-5. The Kraken really made this thing interesting. Our Locked On Kings host and local expert, Eddie Garcia, also from Locked On NHL Game Night, breaks down what happened.
The LA Kings move a little closer to history. I'm Eddie Garcia, host of Locked On LA Kings. The Kings, resting several players, picked up a win over the Seattle Kraken on the road. This game had no bearing on anything in regard to the playoffs, as the Kings improved 48-24-9 for their 105th point on the season, tying the 1974-75 Kings for the most points in franchise history with a point in their final game Thursday at home against Calgary. This Kings team would have more points than any Kings team ever. One note, LA forward Quentin Byfield did not play in this game. No word on his status for the playoffs. The person that put Byfield out of the lineup, Oilers defenseman Darnell Nurse, was given a one-game suspension. What a punishment. He gets the rest for the playoffs by missing a meaningless game. Well done, NHL Department of Player Safety. You've done it again.
Tyler, I know you were one who didn't love the suspension call. I didn't think it needed a suspension either, but I think we could both agree with what Eddie's point was there. If you're going to suspend the guy, at least make it for a game that counts, if that's what you're going to stand on, right?
I think Nurse benefits from what had happened. A game is still a game, is I think what the NHL, what the league would say, regardless of if it matters or not, because the league would say every game should matter. We talked about this on yesterday's show. It deserved a misconduct. It deserved an ejection from the game. I'm not shocked by just this one game suspension, though. I think Quentin Byfield's going to be fine. Like Eddie said, we haven't gotten that update yet, but I expect he won't miss any time. Nurse will miss one game, and then we'll be back for the playoffs. And then these two teams will get to go at it. And I think that'll make for a very fun series in the first round.
The Fogel Arvidsson Bowl. We cannot wait for that to get going. And the only place that every game matters is right here on Locked On NHL Game Night. That is the night that was in the NHL. So y'all be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell so you can stay up to date on everything we're doing here on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcasts. We want to thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network a part of your daily routine. And remember, you can join us, anyone from our team, 7 days a week for all the NHL scores and storylines from your local experts and the guys like us, Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman, on Locked On NHL Game Night.